Good morning and welcome to Wednesday's Wisdom. I'm Diane Conklin with Complete Marketing Systems and Diane'sDozen.com. I saw a quote the other day, and this is what it said. I'm going to read it to you. It says, "You don't end up average because you lack talent. You end up average because you accept less than you're capable of." And it sort of hit me, right? It's like, do you ever think you're less talented, right? We all suffer from what's it called, imposter syndrome, that you're not good enough or you're not as good as somebody else. And that we're not going to talk about the whole comparison game today. But do you want to be excellent? Because the question that you should be asking yourself is, am I doing everything I'm capable of every day? Or at the end of the day, ask yourself, did I do everything I possibly could do today? Now, I'm not talking about the amount of work. I'm talking about the quality of your work. And it's interesting, as entrepreneurs and business owners and people, we lack confidence sometimes for no reason. I was talking to somebody earlier this morning about this, and it struck me that no matter how successful you are, sometimes you still have that confidence thing. I'm gonna tell you a story that'll illustrate this. And it's a story about me, but in no way am I bragging or anything like that. But a few years ago, I was having dinner with my high school softball coach, who's a good friend, and she kept asking me about my business, and I kind of was deflecting, right? And I wasn't really answering her. I was, but I was answering her, but it was short and sweet kind of answers, right? And she kept prodding, she kept asking. And in my mind, I'm thinking, she's not really interested in knowing this. She's asking because she's interested in me, which, by the way, is okay, right? That people ask you questions about things you're interested in. But here's my point. She finally stopped and she looked at me and she said, "Diane, if I ask you what kind of," I can't remember which question she asked first. I think it was, she said, I believe it was softball. She was my high school softball coach. She said, "If I ask you what kind of softball player you are, what would you tell me?" And I looked at her and I said, "I would tell you I was an average softball player who out hustled and outworked most other people." And she looked at me and shook her head and she said, "And if I ask you what kind of business owner, what would you say?" And I said the same thing. I'm an average, average. I just outwork people. I just out hustle people, kind of thing. And she smiled at me. And I said, "What's that for?" And she looked at me and she said, "Average softball players don't play Division I softball. And average business owners don't make no don't make less than, I've never made less than six figures in my business." And she said, "Average business owners don't make six figures and above, let alone seven." And I backed up for a minute and I said, "You really think that about me as a softball player?" And she said, "Yeah." This is a woman who coached for, I want to say 30 years. I may be wrong, but it was close to that. She holds all kind of records in the Ohio High School Softball Hall of Fame, and for wins and all sorts of things. And she looked at me and she said, "Let me give you an idea about your softball." And I was like, "Okay." She said, "You are easily in the top 10 of all the players I ever coached." And she said, "If I thought about it, probably the top 5. And I was blown away. Why am I telling you this story? One, because I think we all have confidence issues. We all think less, that we're not doing enough, that we're not as good as. Now, some people have or maybe are arrogant, and that's a whole nother story. And that's not what I want to talk about today. But this whole idea, was I doing everything I was capable of? Absolutely. Right? In my business and in sports, always. My dad always had to pull me off the field last because after a game or after practice, I wanted him to throw with me. I wanted him to hit balls to me. I wanted him to pitch to me, right? And to the point where it would get dark and he would refuse. That's the only reason I left. But it wasn't about my capability. It was about my confidence in my abilities, my confidence. And some of that was me comparing, right? Which we should never do. But my point in telling you is you need to get around people who believe in you. You need a coach or a mentor or somebody who says to you, wait a minute, look at all the stuff you've done, right? And it still happens to me occasionally, a coach or somebody, an acquaintance, a business associate will say to me, Diane, you're a rock star. Diane, look at all the stuff you've done, or, don't forget, kind of thing. And it's this piece of our confidence, right? And I think part of the reason that we sometimes think of ourselves as average isn't that we lack talent. You're very talented in whatever it is that you're doing. It's that we sometimes don't do everything we're capable of doing in a day, in a week, in a month, in our business. And look, we all have, our lives go like this, right? Our energy level isn't always, at the top. So I'm not saying, but you have to give everything you have in that given day. And, sometimes it's 50%, sometimes it's 100%, sometimes it's 75. I got back from a trip on Monday and I was just really tired. And so I gave myself permission to lay down and take a nap in the middle of the afternoon, which I almost never do. But I was at my desk and I was working and I was just struggling, right? And so that's all I was capable of that day, from an energetic perspective. So I just really want you to think about, at the end of the day, did you do everything you were capable of doing that day? And if the answer is yes, then you will never be average in what you do. Because if the answer is no, you won't accept that for the next day and the next day and the next day. But I think successful people don't have many days where they do less than they're capable of doing. And successful people also have somebody in their lives, a coach, a mentor, somebody pushing them beyond what they think they're capable of doing, right? Who in your life is stretching you? Who in your life is there saying, yeah, you were capable of this 2 weeks ago. You've grown since then. Now you're capable of this. And let's get you there, right? Most athletes, would stop at a certain point. When I'm lifting weights, sometimes I have to remind myself, that I have to go beyond that comfort level in order to get the gains I'm looking for. The reason I do cardio is not because I love it. It's because I want to be capable of doing more than I'm capable of doing now. And I know I have to stretch my cardiovascular system in order for it to grow and for me to be able to do those things, right? Longevity, there's a lot of other reasons. But at the end of the day, did you do at least what you were capable of doing today? I want you to ask yourself that question. And I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what you think. I would love to hear how many days you go and don't do what you think you're capable of. And stop it. And if I can help, please reach out. I'm Diane Conklin with Complete Marketing Systems and DianeDoesn't.com. Until the next time, make it a great day and make sure you do everything you're capable of. +1.